Pregame show presented by Harrah's New Orleans. I'm Caroline Gonzalez, joined by John DeShazier here in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, where the 2-1 New Orleans Saints get set to kick off against the undefeated Dallas Cowboys tonight at 7:20 p.m. You can watch on NBC tonight. JD, we know the history between these two games. Obviously, most recently, the Saints losing to the Cowboys in Dallas last year, 13-10. But most recently, we know that the Saints won a unexpected game, I would say, against the Seattle Seahawks for the first time under Sean Payton without their starting quarterback Drew Brees.
Yeah, total team effort. You got an offensive touchdowns, obviously, defensive touchdown, a special teams touchdown, and they had to have that kind of performance without Drew Brees. Now, that's not saying they'll need that every week, but everybody does need to chip in. Everybody might not score touchdowns, but you've got to hold up your end of the bargain to make it a feasible game. And I thought they played as well as a team across the board as they possibly could have against Seattle.
Absolutely. Everyone knew that they were going to have to rally around Teddy Bridgewater with this being his first start for the Saints. He calls it his first real, important start. Obviously, he had a game against the Carolina Panthers last year, but of course the team wanted to rally around Teddy Bridgewater, and they did that certainly after last game. And we've heard from Teddy Bridgewater after last game, and he said that it was impactful for him. He got emotional before, after the game, because he has been through so much. Obviously, that devastating injury in 2016. He's come a long way, JD.
Yeah, we're talking about a guy who I would imagine at some point, even though he's an athlete and even though they're supremely confident, there had to be some doubts creep in.
Yeah.
When you're missing an entire season, and he basically shredded his knee to be able to go through that process and to really fight your own demons about not coming back or whether or not you're going to be the same guy. I thought it was an extremely emotional time for him. I thought it was fantastic for him to be out that amount of time. And yeah, he did start the season finale last year, but that wasn't the same as starting a meaningful game against the Seattle Seahawks. I thought it was a fantastic story and really a storybook ending for Teddy, who played well in that game.
Of course, we saw that post-game locker room, chat that he had with the team, thanking everyone for accepting him. And of course, he spoke earlier this week, as well as his teammates, about his humility.
This league, it's just funny the way things work in this league, and whenever you have an opportunity, you just want to try to make the most of it, and understand that all this is only possible with God, and so the meek shall inherit the earth, and that's one of my favorite Bible scriptures. But I know that I'm not out there by myself. There are all the guys in this locker room who are out there making plays and allowing this team to be in a position to win games.
How much are you shaped by the injury, just having it taken away from you for a while?
Yeah, man, that injury really shaped my outlook on life. Being able to just wake up in the morning and tie my shoes on my own, I never take that for granted. Every morning that my feet are able to hit the ground, I'm just thankful. So I'm just thankful for life, thankful for opportunities that life has presented me with.
He's one of the humble guys in the locker room. And just seeing him, we know how far he come through his injuries and through his progression throughout this league. And it's very humbling to see somebody like that. And it's very genuine. It broke down to him because it means so much to him. And the team just rallied around him, just putting our arms around him because we love him. And we'll keep on playing hard for him.
JD, as we mentioned earlier, the Saints did lose to the Cowboys last year, 13-10, and that was a physical game for the Saints. I think the most physical game that they had of the season, and of course we know in that game Alvin Kamara left the game with a concussion, but he's coming off of his best game against the Seattle Seahawks last week. What do you expect to see out of the Saints offense this week?
Well, I think they're going to feed him the ball. I mean, he's the focal point of this offense, I believe, without Drew Brees. 25 touches, 161 yards, a couple of touchdowns against Seattle, and he's a guy who makes things go. You want to get him in situations where he's man-to-man, one-on-one, and you take your chances. If you're the Saints, you like your chances. And if you're Dallas, you're trying to rally to the football. The Dallas was extremely physical defensively against the Saints last year. I think that's where the Saints were most disappointed. Sean Payton said they beat us. He didn't mean they won the game. He means they kind of beat us up in that game. And I know Ryan Ramczyk, the right tackle, did not like his performance in that game. The Saints got pushed around a little bit on the offensive line, and I think that's something they want to atone for.
For the Saints defense, of course, headlining going into today's game is the return of Sheldon Rankins, who was suffered an Achilles injury in the playoffs last year, making his comeback during this game. Hopefully we'll see a little bit of the Sheldon shimmy. But what do you expect to see out of the Saints defense tonight?
Well, I think, one, they're going to get an emotional lift when Sheldon Rankins goes on the field because he's a guy who's beloved by that defense. If he's playing, that means he's able to be effective. So hopefully he can impact the game. But the Saints defensively have to be able to take away the run. That's a lot easier said than done against the Dallas Cowboys. Ezekiel Elliott is, if not the best running back in the league, certainly in the top 2 or 3. So, but you got to make them one-dimensional, and that's every week. But this team even more so. If you can't stop the run, you can't take away anything because the play action is that much more effective. So hopefully the Saints can make them one-dimensional, take away that run.
Absolutely. Well, we heard from Von Bell earlier this week speaking about how he wanted to how the Saints defense wanted to make them one-dimensional.
Starts with 21. We got to stop the run, then eliminate the explosive passes off of it because Dak is doing a real good job finding guys down the field and they're making plays for him. So we got to stop the run and make everything just one-dimensional and just get out the field on third down and eliminate the efficiency on first and second down so it won't be a Brees on third down. So we just got to know the situation and eliminate it.
Another area that stood out last week was the Saints special teams, obviously. Thomas Morstead being selected as the NFC Special Teams Player of the Week last week for his unbelievable performance, and obviously we know Deontay Harris did well last week. What are you expecting to see out of the Saints special teams, hoping to see out of the Saints special teams?
Well, you want them to be solid. You can't expect a punt return or a kickoff return for a touchdown every week. That's probably not going to happen. But what you do want from Deontay Harris is to not put the ball on the ground. He muffed a punt last week also, and that's the 3rd miscue he's had in as many games in his young career. I know he's learning. I understand that he's figuring out the process, but he's got to be more secure with the football. Thomas Morstead is who he is. 6 punts, a 52-yard net, 2 of those punts inside the 5, 4 inside the 20. It was a phenomenal game. But again, you can't really expect that kind of production. Yeah, he'll have another solid game because that's who he is, but that was phenomenal production. But you just want those guys to be steady. And also, let's not forget, Will Lutz missed the PAT last week. Now, conditions and handling of the football probably has something to do with that. He's back inside. I don't expect that to happen. Hopefully the Saints will just be clean in special teams.
Well, we heard from the Swiss Army knife of the team, Taysom Hill, earlier from the locker room this week.
Yeah, look, I think you can look back to last year, and I think there were a few games last year that I felt like special teams wise that we were a big contributing factor to, momentum shifts and helping us win football games. But last week was as good of a special teams game as you said that I feel like we've had. Certainly this year, I think we had some really good games last year as well. But I think overall, last week was one of the best 3 phases of the game that we've played in a long time, where that was a team win. Special teams, defensively, offensively, it was all really, really good.
Again, we see people coming into the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, Saints fans, Cowboys fans, all of it. The game will be on NBC tonight at 7:20 p.m. Again, that's the New Orleans Saints against the Dallas Cowboys tonight here in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. I'm Caroline Gonzalez, John DeShazer. Thanks for joining us on the Saints pregame show presented by Harrah's New Orleans.